It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
And we're back for another weekly cup of coffee from Slumberland at the Lake. I'm Wild Will.
I'm Uncle Chris.
And he's got his shades on, which means, guess what? Hopefully that crazy weather is finally over. The sun is shining, and I know it's a good day when I arrive to Slumberland at the Lake and I see Arvin's Harley sitting in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
I know the sun's out and the weather's clear. Hey, we're going to talk about the ice that was on the road.
Did you see that? I thought it was like from last winter, and it was actually last week.
Yeah, crazy. Over the weekend, some crazy storms brought in intense hail. We'll show you that. Plus, hey, what's the latest Osage Nation casino? Are we going to get a casino at Lake of the Ozarks?
You know, from what I hear, they're still on track.
And maybe even ahead of their plans. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more on this week's Cup of Coffee.
Hey everybody, it's Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. The weather hasn't been conducive to playing outside, so we've kept our tent for a couple more weeks. That's right, you got great deals in the tent and interest-free financing. Not only that, we've got new Sealy mattresses in, so now all of our showroom models are on clearance. You can save up to $800 off of showroom models at Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
The biggest names in music visit Lake of the Ozarks in 2025 at the Ozarks Amphitheater. Get ahead of the crowd with the Ozarks Amp Fan Club. Score pre-sales, announcements, special offers, day of show details, and so much more. The best part is, it's free to join, but you've got to sign up to beat the crowd. Visit ozarksamp.com and score big with Missouri's #1 outdoor music venue, the Ozarks Amphitheater. We'll see you under the stars.
A cup of coffee as we wake up, in the car, or right here on Lake TV with Will and Chris. Kind of like driving, we do it every single day.
But we shouldn't do it while distracted. Did you know that drivers who text are 23 times more likely to be in a crash? So keep your eyes on the road and always remember to buckle up and put your phones down.
This Drive Safe, Boat Safe message brought to you by Price and Randall Injury Attorneys.
Now back to your cup of coffee with Will and Chris.
All right, so as we get started this week, I want to remind everybody, hey, July 1, no more Como Connect in regards to broadcast TV. That means, hey, if you're watching Lake TV on Como Connect Channel 90, which is a lot of you, you got to make the jump. And Lake TV, although you've watched us for years on Como Connect Channel 90, you're going to have to go to Roku, Amazon Fire TV, or of course you can go to the LOZ app right from the palm of your hand. And Lake TV's all over.
Yeah. Absolutely.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Website.
Our website, streaming 24/7 at myLakeTV.com. And we'll continue to find ways to bring you Lake TV. But hey, TV is changing in 2025. And so with that comes some changes. We want to make sure you're ready for that so you don't miss whether it's your weekly cup of coffee, weekend at the lake, the boat races, or our high school sports and lots of other great Lake of the Ozarks content. But we wanted to make sure you were aware. And as we get started this week, a couple rapid headlines before we get in to this week's show. Don't forget that next Tuesday, the 17th, is the second reading for the city of Osage Beach for that ordinance for those Chapter 100 bonds with the Anglers Outpost Lodge. Now remember, they're seeking $13 million.
This is a big thing, man.
In Chapter 100 bonds with the city of Osage Beach. And so the second reading will take place. Now that meeting normally on Thursday, it's going to be Tuesday, June 17th, as June 19th is a national holiday. So wanted to remind you of that. And also wanted to touch on heartbreak in Versailles over the weekend as student Ryan Simpson was killed tragically in a Miller County crash. His car allegedly broke down on the side of the road and was struck by a car passing by. Just absolutely horrifying. We lift up Ryan's family, friends, and the community of Versailles as they deal with this heartbreak, as well as, the driver of the car that will live with this, forever. And then heartbreak in Lebanon as well, as 21-year-old Reagan Wilson was fatally shot on June 5th in Lebanon. She sustained multiple gunshot wounds and was transported to a local hospital but did not survive. Now, she was near-term pregnant, and the heroics of medical staff, reportedly the baby was delivered, and according to Ozarks First, at the time of recording, was in critical but stable condition. And so a couple of just horrifying headlines that you see over the weekend, and you hate to see those, but we'll be lifting up the families, the friends in both the Lebanon and Versailles communities. Now, in other news, we told you about the city of Osage Beach and their Board of Aldermen meeting for next Tuesday, but hey, there's a lot going on in the city of Osage Beach. We'll tell you about some parks and stuff. They're partnering coming up in a minute, but you almost lose sight of with everything happening from the big headlines and everything with the big weekends and the crazy weather. You almost lose sight of the fact that Father's Day weekend is this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes we forget. Mother's Day is a big deal, and sometimes Father's Day kind of gets falls through the cracks. But on the Spotlight Show, the Community Spotlight Show last week, we talked about the importance of fathers in the family, and if the father is not there, how it dramatically affects the family. I think we need to start celebrating fathers a little bit more. I mean, obviously mothers are hugely important, but fathers are too. And hopefully the family units are going to start staying together a little bit better, at least for the kids' sake, right?
Yeah, and I kind of, got the standard of all dads with my dad.
Oh, what a great guy.
Kevin, not only Father's Day coming up, and he's set the best example for the last 34 years for me and for my sisters, but he's getting ready to turn 60 on July 1st.
He's still a young buck, man.
Yeah, he's still running and gunning, but my dad, pretty special. And this weekend, our friends at Super Splash USA say, dads, they agree with you, Uncle Chris. They want to celebrate fathers. And so you get into the park absolutely free. Go to supersplash.com and use code DAD2025 to get a free day pass into the water park this weekend. So really cool. And I saw over this last weekend, finally, some sunshine on and off. And I saw the Adventure Island, the kids land at Super Splash is done, and people were there. And so as you see, great video here from Daniel Carnahan. The park is rocking and rolling, but you kind of feel for not only like Super Splash USA, but your waterfront bars and grills. Look at all these weekends we've had rain or bad weather.
Yeah, it's been a really, really wet spring heading into summer. And in summer it'll probably dry out. But Super Splash USA, they put so much money into that park, and the weather just hasn't cooperated so far. So make plans to get out there, check it out, try it out, have some fun, see what they've done over there. Great people at Super Splash.
Absolutely. And some of that crazy weather, Sunday in particular, there was hail. And not just hail, like 1 inch of ice built up on Highway 54 between Eldon and Lake Ozark. And you're like, wait, is this June or is this December? And the crazy storms brought the hail, of course, in this Facebook video from Soul Waters LLC showed just how crazy the roads were. That does not look like June.
MoDOT crews had to be called out to plow the roadway. There was so much hail on the highway. Usually in June, you don't have to call the MoDOT plows out, to clear the roads, but that's what happened.
Just crazy. And as rough weather continues into the late spring, early summer, you're kind of hoping like, can we just get the sun to come out and stay out?
Yeah, I know. I mean, we do a lot of stuff at Lake TV that kind of requires sun, like when you do the doc series, right? Or things like that. It kind of helps when the sun is out. So it's kind of thrown a kink in some of our production plans a little bit.
Yeah, but I feel like a whiner in comparison to like our friends that have the lake bars. Because seriously, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when they're open and it's raining, people aren't going to be on the water. And so we feel for them. But hey, you also got to have good weather to be out in the trails, out biking, and the city of Osage Beach and the Missouri State Parks have partnered on a new trail linking the city and state parks. So this is from a press release from the city of Osage Beach. They've officially entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources Division of State Parks, and it's going to be for a multi-use single trail that will span both city and state parklands, promoting hiking and mountain biking in the area. The project, a collaboration among state, municipal, and local stakeholders, advanced with key support from Osage Beach, Alderman Phyllis Monroe, and District 123 State Rep Jeff Vernetti. It also lists a 2-mile trail will open spring of next year, which is right around the corner. And it looks like it's going to have involvement and support for Magic Dragon Trails, which has been led by Jan and Stacy Pirtle. And what's funny is the Pirtles had first approached the city 3 years ago with a proposal to incorporate a trail into the park. And this press release says their continued support has been instrumental in bringing this project to life. So big things coming as you look at Magic Dragon Trails, the city of Osage Beach. And this is big stuff, especially when you look at mountain biking, e-biking, and people want to be outdoors now more than ever before.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, this has been years in the making. They say the long-time project in the planning is finally given the go-ahead, which is good. And construction of the new trail under City Parks and Magic Dragon Trails Group expected to start late fall or early winter. So that's coming this year, and the trail itself expected to be open in the spring of 2026. So they're ready to go. They've got plans, and apparently they're getting on it.
And it goes on to say, which is pretty cool, that Osage Beach as a city enhances City Park through the community partnership there. And they look at Parks Manager Eric Gregory, and if you look at the last month, they've had tons of stuff going on. The new Dragon Hatchery Disc Golf Course, designed by volunteer Gary Brahman. It officially opened. 2 sand volleyball courts were revitalized and reopened through the partnership with Lake of the Ozarks Volleyball. And in addition, Osage Beach Public Works, with support from the Special Road District, are spearheading the paving of Hatchery Road through City Park down to Osage Beach Lowe's Bark Park parking lot. So, I mean, we're talking about, we would always talk some of these cities, and especially when you enter the lake, right, and you look at Chesterfield and some of the areas outside of St. Louis, some of the things they do. Well, I mean, these are some really cool developments for the city of Osage Beach and for Lake of the Ozarks as a whole.
Yeah, and don't forget, that's not the only thing happening. Things are happening with the Outlet Mall that we hear things are progressing, and the city is on board, the last we heard, with the new developers there. Of course, you got the Oasis theme park, which has been, slowed. It's not going to open until next year, but it's still moving. Things are still moving, being put together off property behind the scenes, so that is moving right along. And we got some news. You did some digging about the Osage Indian Casino project. I mean, all of that stuff and more is happening. I mean, my kudos go out to some of the city officials. I mean, Mayor Harmison, the mayors in Lake Ozark for the last few years, the new Mayor Ridgely. So many good things, big things are happening in the area. It's pretty stunning, really.
Yeah, growth is inevitable, and at this rate, we're seeing right now it's happening quickly. And of course, everyone's going to allude to the delays in some of this, but we've talked about some of these multi-phase developments and projects and builds. A lot of obstacles and can be complex. So hey, something that's big is grants. And if you know the Community Foundation of the Lake, a great organization down here in Lake of the Ozarks, well, they're actually going to host a grant writing workshop featuring a really good panel of experts. So the Community Foundation of the Lake is proud to announce the workshop designed to equip nonprofit professionals, educators, and community leaders with essential tools for securing grant funding and building sustainable programs. If this piques your interest, the event will take place on June 25th at the Church at Osage Hills and will feature the panel. I'm getting ready to list, but it is a dynamic panel with seasoned experts, including Beth Tankersley Bankhead, Don Busick, Jerron Johnson, Donna Chapman. And so you'll get to kind of hear about how would you go about the process of looking into getting a grant, filling out the paperwork, how can you make sure you qualify, all of those things. And so if you're interested about that, you can contact Jan Amos at 321-258-5828. Or, of course, we just mentioned Stacy Pirtle, 641-745-5745. Or check out Community Foundation of the Lake online. Pretty easy to get a hold of. But I know for the lake, we have a lot of nonprofits, a lot of efforts and causes. And so that could be a very beneficial event on the 25th.
Yeah, no doubt. That's not an easy thing to do, applying for those those grants and everything, you got to know how to do it. You got to know the ins and the outs. So if that is your arena, then I would take advantage of that.
You know, most counties and municipalities actually contract a grant writer.
Yeah.
Like on behalf of their city to apply for grants. And when you have somebody that's good, or you have a good city administrator, they a lot of times go out and find those things and then use the hired grant writer in some capacity to go about that. But anyway, interesting. Make sure you put that on your calendar coming up in a couple of weeks. So the big story of the week, we're going to do an update. Osage Nation Casino, right?
Wow, okay.
So everyone been talking about casinos at Lake of the Ozarks. The Osage Nation Casino was first, but then we had talks of a private casino with Gary Pruitt and Bally's going on the ballot to amend the Missouri Constitution.
I was shocked that that failed during the last election period. I thought that was a shoo-in that casino was going to be voted in. It was voted down, didn't happen.
And so at that point, people were like, well, I guess that means no casino at the lake. Or they're like, what happened with Osage Nation Casino? Well, I told you last week about Dan Geyer's post online, right? And it kind of given you some updates on what had happened. And so I reached out to the city of Lake Ozark, and their reply, Mayor David Ridgely said, yeah, it looks like it's still at the federal level. And what he's alluding to was, according to this release I found, that the noted expansion to Lake of the Ozarks is at or ahead of schedule.
Wow.
The executive team is keeping up to date with not only the progress of the application with the U.S. Department of Interior through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and National Indian Gaming Commission. That's the step it's been at, right? They had to have that application, so they're staying up to date with that. And the nation is entering other phases of the required compact, permitting, and construction. And as far as construction goes for this particular project, their team says they're keeping a close eye on the cost to assure that the escrow, expansion, and emergency funds are well funded at or above forecasted requirements to keep, if needed, debt or short-term problems.
Wow.
Like, they are prepped and ready, and looks to be ahead of this. Now, if you're wondering what compacts, I alluded to that, entering, that would be agreements with the state or city with liquor, tobacco, and fuel, should they have those on property, or they call them EATs, economic activity taxes, or pilots, which is payments in lieu of taxes. And if you're curious what that could look like, well, in Oklahoma, where the Osage Nation has 7 casino and hotel resorts, in 2024, their compact paid $8.7 million to the state of Oklahoma, and another $12.3 million to the counties and cities that are home to Osage casinos and hotels. And so that's pretty drastic figures right now. The one at Lake of the Ozarks, should it come to fruition, it's worth noting that at the federal level with the Bureau of Affairs, they could only say yes to slots or video, whereas it would have to be the state of Missouri and the governor's office, from my understanding, that would sign off on table games. So we're talking about one location without tables. That could be a lot less drastically. However, when you look at the track record, their 2024 audit showed that all compact fees were paid and that a 6.2% surplus was there over all budgets. And so if you look at that, and then you look at what they're planning for Lake of the Ozarks, everything I would say would lead me to believe that they're going to build a casino at Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, and according to the information you got, they're ahead of their own schedule. So if that's the case, then they're definitely on track. And just recently, Osage Casinos reported they are debt-free on the property developments of their Pawhuska and Bartlesville casinos, with plans to expand the existing facilities in Sand Springs and Ponca City. I think all those are in Oklahoma.
And real quick,
wow.
What's worth noting is that first one was a $50 million project from 2023, and Bartlesville was $68 million from last year.
Wow.
And those are already debt-free.
Wow. That goes to show you, I mean, they're making money. They're obviously running this business pretty well if they're debt-free now. According to a prepared release, Osage Casinos distributed an additional $2.3 million to the Osage Nation for its government operations following a successful year of financial performance. They already distribute $75 million, so that this is on top of that $75 million. It's pretty amazing. Their CEO is Kimberly Pearson. She says, "We have made incredible strides toward a standard of excellence in all aspects of our business." It sure sounds like it. And it sounds like they're on track still here at the Lake of the Ozarks.
And they're doing the right things. I mean, their foundation, which is a 501(c), the Osage Nation Foundation, awarded over $500,000 in 2024 to worthy causes, and over $100,000 of that directly to Lake of the Ozarks nonprofits and worthy causes. And so I'll say it, I've said it before, if anyone deserves a break and some support, I would say it'd be the Native Americans. So let's go Osage Nation Casino at Lake of the Ozarks. I mean, they seem to be very fiscally sound, and it also goes to show you that maybe casino is a good business to get into. You and I ought to maybe look into that.
Shoot, man, I think the Osage Indians have it covered. And remember, that property is in Lake Ozark. It's on that lot across the street, Highway 54, from Menards, right? So that
right up from there.
That would be where that casino property would be.
It used to be the Denny's,
yeah,
for people that are really familiar with the long time ago. And they've already torn that down. The former hotel kind of cleared that area, just kind of sitting there. And so it looks like that application's still sitting and they're up to date. And with that track record, I'm sure that means something to that Department of Indian Affairs and all of those different organizations and regulatory boards and all of that. I mean, when they're doing those things, especially when you're giving back to the Indian government as well, I mean, I'm sure that carries some weight as well.
Well, and I did know you'd mentioned something earlier. They have something in lieu of taxes. Since the Indian Nation is a sovereign nation, then from what I understand, they can't be taxed by, the U.S. for this. So in lieu of the taxes that the city or the county would make, they have another form of payment that kind of makes up for that.
Correct.
Which is fascinating.
And if you remember, the last time that there had been open dialogue between the city of Lake Ozark and Osage Nation on this development was December of 2024, where Osage Nation was really trying to get a resolution of support from the city of Lake Ozark. And it came down to a tie, and it lost in a 4-3 no vote. At the time, Mayor Dennis Newberry, and he said that it was because he didn't have enough information, didn't have any. And so some of those things you hear them working on, those compacts and those agreements, those are the things that I think the city of Lake Ozark is going to want to see and want to have those conversations, because if they can get a good deal with good agreements or good gifts back to the city of Lake Ozark to help, I mean, that could be a substantial amount of annual revenue.
And I don't think the other project is necessarily dead. Even though it failed on the last ballot, doesn't mean they're not going to try to put it on another ballot.
It will certainly, that will not be the last time you see that.
Absolutely. Neither one of these projects are dead.
So, all right, as we move on, it looked like last week or last weekend, the state track competition was concluded. And man, our local schools had pretty good showing.
Wow.
Last week we gave a little love to Landon Childs from School of the Osage as he won his second consecutive state championship in the pole vault. But also, Jaden Tabaney was third place in the triple jump, and Macy Kessler, she took third place in the pole vault as well. And as you look, I mean, the School of the Osage had an incredible year for track. You look at Drake Williams, Noah Nortrip, Noah Stevens, Dane DePay, Robert Dubbs, Josh Davis, James Newell, Luke Wolf, Andrew Gruce, Delaney Haig, all qualified for state. Their coaches, Miriam Hill and Nikki Keith, did a great job, and numerous school records, medals, conference championships. Men's and women's team were the conference champions this year. And then that kind of impressive showing at state. Well done, School of the Osage track, and the big shout out and thanks to their athletic department. They do a great job.
So many of those people we know from doing football and basketball and different stuff, and some of the coaches we know, like Miriam Hill. What a great lady, great teacher, great coach. You want teachers and coaches like that leading your kids.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And then of course in Camdenton, shout out to Dr. Billy Kurtz, Deontay Hare, triple jump, second place.
Wow.
Unbelievable athlete. Remember him from the gridiron. But 13.93 meters. He was just 2 inches short of the state championship. Ty Wythop, long jump, 5th place, second-year medalist, and Eli Dickerson in the javelin, 5th place. But 6 different state qualifiers for Camdenton. Of course, Deontay Hare, Claire McGuire, Brody Reese, Gunnar Rhodes. I mentioned Ty Wythop and Eli Dickerson. So congrats to the Lakers, Camdenton Lakers, man. Yep. Those track and field athletes, that's not something you and I are going to be doing anytime soon.
I'm telling you what, you got to be in good shape. That's the track is all about being in good shape, and all those people are. So kudos to them. There's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of athletics and track and field, the NCAA, big college sports fans, you're a Nebraska guy. We love March Madness. I'm a big Mizzou guy. My life's sad at times.
Right, yeah.
But hey, the NCAA is about to start paying student athletes directly.
I know. Things have been changing in college sports the last few years, and in my opinion, not for the better, because it's gotten all chaotic, and it doesn't seem like there are any rules. So they've been paying athletes the last few years through what they call NIL, name, image, and likeness. But there are really not many rules. This wasn't being paid by the schools themselves. It was from boosters and different companies, and pretty much, they could do whatever they wanted. And now the schools have apparently been given the okay to step in and start paying the athletes themselves, right? So, this is all just, I don't know how they're going to sort this all out. This is a mess.
Yeah, as you alluded to, the landscape changing drastically. Now, I am on the other side of that, where I love the changes, love seeing the student athletes get to compensate off their own name, and that it will be changing even more drastically as a multi-billion-dollar legal settlement was formally approved on Friday by Judge Claudia Wilkin. She approved the deal between the NCAA, its top conferences, and lawyers representing all Division I athletes. It ends 3 separate antitrust lawsuits, all of which claim the NCAA was legally limiting the earning power of college athletes. Schools now have to figure out in the next 3 weeks how to start cutting checks by July 1st. It's a $2.8 billion lawsuit separate from them having to start paying them moving forward.
Yeah.
And that $2.8 billion in back damages will be paid over the next 10 years to athletes who competed in colleges at any time from 2016 to present day. That is going to be a lot to sort out, and I'm going to make sure that I didn't end up playing Division I football for a few years I can't remember about.
I'm sure you did. Yeah,
I think I might have some of those back damages, But I found that to be interesting, and you said you don't necessarily like the way it's changing, but you'd have to agree with me that some of these kids that go and play Division I sports and are stars and make the university millions and may never go play at the next level.
Right.
You think their education's enough?
Well, no, I think sports has grown so much over the years. The payment for the athletes used to be the education, and sports were a small thing back, decades ago, so that paid for it. There's so many millions and billions of dollars in college sports now. I think that the athletes do deserve to be paid. I just think the way they're doing it is so screwed up, and there's no rules, and like the transfer portal is messing everything up. Somebody needs to come in and set some rules down, some regulations, so that, it's just not all willy-nilly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It'll be interesting to see too, like with that, the transfer portal, if moving forward, if you see any changes or restrictions, because now that schools do play payers directly. Are we talking multi-year contracts?
Right.
Where if you do transfer, you yield or you owe the university, and then that could prevent a student. I think you're going to need to see some of that.
You got to have some rules.
Some accountability. So very, very interesting. We'll continue to follow that. But I love the fact that, Division I athletes are going to start getting paid directly and maybe not have to go rely on sponsorship deals or go run a business.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get an education, and maybe you want to argue, Uncle Chris, that anymore university education is not enough considering what they're getting.
Well, and I don't think university education is really worth the paper that you sign to go to college anymore. The colleges have kind of turned out to be ridiculous. Our university system needs to be overhauled in a lot of different ways.
Hey, that and there's a lot of other industries that may need an overhaul. We told you we were going to reach out to local medical providers, find out about the non-compete clauses, and could it be leading to the doctor shortage in America? And this was in response to a letter to the editor we saw from D.O. out of Columbia. Well, didn't hear anything back from anyone locally, but we'll keep digging as we do have response from somebody that owns their own practice in Colorado. And as you look at what's happening on Lake TV, Jerry Peters.
Yeah, Operation Life Support, helping first responders and military folks with PTSD.
Yeah, important stuff. That's going to do it for this week's Cup of Coffee from Slumberland at the Lake.